Thanks for joining us on Ebru Africa TV. Hoping you're well from wherever you're watching us from. This is the weekly report and I am Anette Akisa. We have a comprehensive report for you on what's been happening in the African continent this week. But first, let's have a look at the headlines. South Sudan conflict. Dozens killed in an attack by armed youths in South Sudan. Administration police pass out. The Kenyan government sends stern warning to terrorists as more than 3,000 administration police recruits graduate. Mukuru innovation. Plastic water bottles used to provide light in Kenyan slums. We start off in Nigeria, where at least 70 people were killed in two blasts that rocked a crowded bus station on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. The blast happened as commuters were about to board buses and taxis to go to work in central Abuja.
Boko Haram has hit Abuja several times before, including an attack on the United Nations building in 2011. Suspicion fell on Boko Haram, though there was no immediate claim of responsibility from the group, which is mainly active in the northeast. Bloody remains lay on the ground as security forces struggled to hold back a crowd of onlookers as firefighters continued hosing a bus that had charred bodies of commuters. Eyewitnesses say there are dead bodies scattered around the area.
When one particular guy was holding a bag and he went into the aeroplane, he now steps down out of the aeroplane after some few minutes. He left like 5 minutes later, that thing now exploded. Before you could know, everybody has died.
The Boko Haram has been particularly active in the northeast over the past few months and are increasingly targeting civilians they accuse of collaborating with the government or security forces. There had been no attacks near the capital since suicide car bombers targeted the offices of the Nigerian newspaper This Day in Abuja and northern city of Kaduna in April 2012.
Still in Nigeria, Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan held an emergency meeting with his top security officials in the wake of insecurity. In a rare move, he also invited all of Nigeria's 36 state governments to join a second crisis meeting following the Security Council talks.
The meeting did not include governors from the opposition All Progressive Congress Party, although some represent regions hardest hit by the recent unrest. The school attack and Monday's bombing at a bus station on the outskirts of Abuja have underscored the serious threat the militants pose to Africa's most populous country and top economy. A Nigerian school principal yesterday denied military reports that most of the girls kidnapped by gunmen were now safe, as parents continued a desperate search for 115 children still held captive. The mass kidnap on Monday sparked global outrage. Students have been massacred in their dormitories and bombs set off at university campuses, but the mass abduction specifically targeting girls is unprecedented. Bono's governor has offered a 50 million naira reward to anyone with information leading to the return of the school girls.
And dozens of civilians sheltering in a UN base in the South Sudan town of Bor were killed in an attack by armed youths. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon strongly condemned the attack, referring to it as a war crime.
A mob of armed civilians pretending to be peaceful protesters delivering a petition to the United Nations in South Sudan forced their way onto a UN base, sheltering some 5,000 civilians and opened fire, killing several people.
The Secretary General strongly condemns today's attack on civilians and the United Nations peacekeepers in the UNMISS Protection Civilian Site in Bor, in the capital of Jonglei State in South Sudan. This attack on a location where civilians are being protected by the United Nations is a serious escalation. The Secretary General reminds all parties that any attack on United Nations peacekeepers is unacceptable and constitutes a war crime.
UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric said dozens of civilians and 2 UN peacekeepers were also wounded in the attack on the UN base in the market town of Bor, northern Jonglei state.
We do, however, already know that dozens of internally displaced persons were wounded in the attack and are receiving medical attention at the UN compound's clinic. 2 UN peacekeepers sustained injuries repelling the mob.
It's not yet clear who carried out the attack.
You know, once the shooting starts, it's hard to say exactly who these people are, but we do believe, regardless of who they are, that the government of South Sudan has a responsibility to protect UN premises.
More than 1 million people have fled their homes since the fighting erupted in the world's youngest country in December between troops backing President Salva Kiir and soldiers loyal to the sacked Vice President Riek Machar. Thousands of people have been killed and tens of thousands have sought refuge at UN bases around the country.
Into Kenya now, the Kenyan government said it will not relent in its war against terrorists. While addressing a pass-out parade for the administration police recruits, top government officials led by President Uhuru Kenyatta vowed to continue cracking down on criminals, sending a warning that they have nowhere to hide. The newly recruited officers will be deployed across the country.
President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto led senior government officials in assuring the country that everything possible was being done to restore security. He said the government is ready to disarm those holding illegal firearms once the 2-week ultimatum he issued expires. President Kenyatta said the ongoing security operation was not targeting any religious or ethnic community and cautioned those playing politics with our national security.
Though it pretends to be religiously motivated, we all know that it is little more than criminal viciousness, and we shall treat it as such. We, as a government, will resist the temptation to fight a war of religion or ethnicity.
He was supported by Deputy President William Ruto.
We are ready to ensure that every terrorist is subdued. Every cattle rustler is brought to book, and every criminal made to account.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ole Lenku defended the security operation going on in the country, further warning refugees that they must go back to camps or be arrested.
Those who continuously break the law, involve themselves in criminal activities or terrorist activities, Your Excellency, the writing is on the wall. We will not do our work to their wishes.
Police Chief David Kemaiyo said his officers are under instructions to observe the law while flashing out criminals.
Any officer who goes wayward or who commits an act of indiscipline, then therefore the National Police Service will not hesitate, and through my office we shall take firm, decisive action.
Over 3,000 officers marched off the college to join their colleagues in securing the country. The government of Kenya says it will recruit 10,000 more security officers as it moves to boost its police force. And President Uhuru Kenyatta says nothing will stop the government from cracking down on criminals. Reporting for Ebru Africa TV, I'm Masharia Wamogo.
Now, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi gained 8 times the number of signatures needed to register as a candidate in Egypt's presidential election. A legal advisor of Sisi, the country's former military chief, who orchestrated the 2013 overthrow of the then-president Mohamed Morsi, delivered the 200,000 signatures to the Election Commission Monday. Under Egypt's electoral law, any candidate hoping to run for president needs to collect at least 25,000 signatures.
A huge poster of former Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi stands tall near Cairo's iconic Tahrir Square, one of thousands that have sprung up across Egypt. Less than 3 weeks before the launch of official campaigning for the May 26th-27th presidential election, supporters of Field Marshal Sisi, the odds-on favorite, are raring to go. On television, social media networks, or stands selling election merchandise, Sisi is omnipresent, with no stone unturned in unofficial campaigning. Callers to television talk shows have recited poems in honor of the clear frontrunner. Footage of pro-Sisi demonstrations and soldiers in training are all over the internet. Sisi, who retired from the military to run for election, has been riding on a wave of popularity since he toppled President Mohamed Morsi last July. Amnesty International says that since the ousting of President Mohamed Morsi, a police crackdown on supporters of the former president have left dead more than 1,400 people. In contrast to all the Sisi paraphernalia seen on the streets, there is none for his opponents, including Hamdine Sabahi, the leftist leader, seen as his nearest rival. The Sisi brand, meanwhile, has turned into a lucrative business. Video games, cakes and chocolates have been named after him, while posters of Sisi with tigers, eagles or the late charismatic President Gamal Abdel Nasser are everywhere.
On to health matters now. School children in Guinea capital Conakry were taught basic hygiene rules to keep Ebola from spreading in the densely populated capital city. So far, the virus is suspected to have killed more than 100 people in Guinea. The deadly hemorrhagic fever is suspected of killing more than 100 people in Guinea during the current outbreak, the first in the country. Infection control measures in health facilities are also being stepped up to halt the spread of the disease, which can kill up to 9 out of 10 patients.
We have to teach them. We have to show them ways to disinfect, the methods to disinfect with chlorine, with bleach, with antiseptics, and each time to wash their hands. So it's not just about bodily hygiene, but also food hygiene.
To help stem the spread, local schools are educating students about sanitary measures they can take both in and out of the classroom.
It is not just at school that they must respect the rules. After school as well, when they go back home before eating, they must wash their hands. They must also use bleach at each moment, before and after eating.
The World Health Organization said health workers are set to fan out in the city to try to identify people who may have been exposed to the deadly virus. But tracing people in a city of around 2 million who may have had physical contact with infected people is harder than the epicenter of the outbreak, some 900 kilometers from the capital. It was said everywhere that the disease that is spreading here is a very, very serious illness. We were told how the sickness is transmitted. This is why we have taken these steps here, because the children, they go out and wander everywhere in the neighborhood. The European Union donated 1.1 million euros to the Guinean government to help them take preventive measures. To date, in Guinea alone, there have been 157 identified cases of Ebola, including 101 deaths. Liberia has 21 suspected and confirmed cases, including 10 deaths, with fears that the virus could spread to other countries in the West Africa region. We cross over to Tanzania, where at least 10 people, 5 of them children, died and many more trapped in floodwaters following heavy rains in Dar es Salaam. Hundreds of homes were swept away by raging water that also wreaked havoc in many parts of the country. Hundreds of families have sought refuge with friends and relatives as rising water levels sweep away their homes. Rescue workers were under pressure to move those stranded in floods to temporary homes in police offices and schools. In parts of Dar es Salaam, transport came to a complete standstill as stormwater flooded motorways, leaving commuters stranded and services temporarily ground to a halt. A red alert by the meteorological services that the rains would continue for 2 more days sparked panic among residents who are having a hard time coming to terms with the devastating effects of the downpour. The police, in collaboration with regional authorities, have set up rescue teams to work in areas most affected by the floods. At least 5 bridges that connect Dar es Salaam and upcountry regions have been swept away. Tanzania's meteorological agency issued a red alert on Thursday and urged residents to prepare for heavy rains exceeding 50 millimeters in 24 hours, strong winds at 40 kilometers per hour, and large ocean waves reaching 2 meters. The last time Dar es Salaam experienced such floods was in 2011. At least 23 people died and 4,909 people were displaced. Dar es Salaam's Defense and Security Committee held a day-long meeting Monday to assess the damage. Elsewhere, Rwanda warned that enough is not being done to prevent future mass atrocities in other countries as the United Nations passed a resolution pledging to heed the lessons from the country's 1994 genocide.
Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2014/270 please raise their hand?
The UN Security Council adopted a resolution solemnly calling on states to recommit, prevent and fight against genocide and other serious crimes against international law. The resolution underscores the importance of taking into account lessons learned from the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The resolution also called on UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to ensure greater collaboration between existing early warning mechanisms for genocide prevention and other serious international crimes. While broadly welcoming the resolution, Rwanda's UN Ambassador Eugene Richard Gasana questioned whether enough was being done, citing examples of recent conflict in Syria, Central African Republic and South Sudan.
The horrific scenes coming from the Central African Republic, Syria, South Sudan will in some cases convince many that the UN is still grappling to match its normative principles with realities on the ground, and that preventing mass atrocities still has a long way to go.
According to Gasana, in future, the UN should not only be quick to deploy peacekeepers, instead should do more to address the root causes of conflicts, improving democratic governance, reducing poverty and inequality, ensuring national reconciliation.
Today, some of the viable initiatives, like the International Criminal Court, are prone to political manipulations and abuses, which in turn contradict the original intention of the creation of such mechanisms.
At least 800,000 people, mostly Tutsis and some moderate Hutus, died in a viciously executed 3-month genocide which began on April 6, 1994, shortly after Hutu President Juvenal Habyarimana was killed when his plane was shot down over Kigali.
Once one of Africa's most popular tourist destinations, for the past few years, Kenya has suffered from a deteriorating security image abroad. The Kenyan government, however, assured visitors of their security and is currently carrying out an operation to flush out criminals.
The white sands of Mombasa stretch to the horizon, with fewer and fewer tourists to obstruct the view. While Kenyans still come here to swim and relax, international tourists are an increasingly rare sight. Once one of Africa's most popular travel destinations, Kenya's image abroad has deteriorated in recent years, largely due to high-profile security scares.
There were 2 tourists who were taken from Lamu. They were taken to Somalia. So all the people thought that once you go to Kenya, then it's not a safe place to go. You might be one of the victims.
Zuma says business is just a third of what it was in better days, before the deadly post-election violence in 2007-2008 that first shook Kenya's international reputation. The Lamu Island kidnappings in 2011, last year's attack on a Nairobi shopping center, which left at least 67 dead, and waves of ongoing religious violence in Mombasa have all been a PR disaster. After agriculture, tourism is Kenya's biggest source of income, generating $4.7 billion in 2011 and employing 12% of its workforce. Tour companies say the government isn't doing enough to support this crucial sector of its economy.
Lawmakers and the government are also not really helping, and rather much to the contrary, that they are making things more difficult. We have had new taxation implemented. We saw a rise in park fees and all these factors that in a very dicey economic environment worldwide.
Kenya also faces fierce competition from neighboring countries like Tanzania, where travelers can also enjoy the dual pleasures of going from safari to the beach, often at much lower cost. The entry fee to Tanzania's famed Serengeti is just $60 a day, compared to the $90 it costs just across the border in Kenya's Masai Mara.
It's no longer the olden days where the only destination along the East African coast is Mombasa. Now you have Zanzibar, they're also opening up Pemba, and many places are opening up, including Mozambique, down as you move down south. So these are all competition that we never used to have.
Kenya's tourism industry has been struck by the perfect storm: violence, global economic crisis, and greater regional competition. Still, operators remain hopeful that with time they can restore the country's image back to one of safaris, sundowners, and a sense of adventure.
Still in Kenya, life in Kenya's informal settlements can be tough. It is characterized by high poverty levels, poor sanitation, high crime rate, and poor shelter. But despite the numerous challenges found in such villages, some slum dwellers who have made it through the hard environment have gone back to the same community to improve the welfare of the poor. Ebro Africa News reporter Agnes Gakunga brings us the story of Kennedy Odede, who has started a project to empower the girl child.
Kenya's Kibera slum, the largest slum village in the entire East African region. This village is home to over 2 million low-income earners. A complete meal every day to many families here is never guaranteed.
We do regular home visits for all our kids. We check regularly with the parents. We also provide nutrition advice to parents on how to best care for their kids. So we don't give them food, per se to take home, but we just ensure that they're very well fed during the day. So there's porridge throughout the day, then there's milk, and then there's lunch, and then there's an evening snack. So sometimes that's all they get, meaning when they go home, some are likely not to get food.
Many young men engage in criminal activities due to lack of suitable employment opportunities. The girl child, on the other hand, has many obstacles coming her way, from sexual abuse to early marriage to dropping out of school due to high poverty rate. But despite the many heartbreaking stories reported over the years from this village, some of the people who grew here and understand the challenges facing the residents are giving back to the society. This is how Shining Hope Center was born. Kennedy Odede grew up seeing his mother and his sisters suffering in such harsh environment, and this steered his urge to help the girl child.
I take them from a very, very early age. So, for example, I have to understand why they're not going to school. And then from there, I go to their families to check economic situation. Then we do an interview. You know what I mean? We have a small interview here that we do. And we spread the word out. Some people bring their neighbors' kids, orphans, kids that have been really sexually abused, so sad, And then we give them a place, to free school for them. What they have to do is their guardians or parents, they come here to help in classes and help in cooking.
Through well-wishers, he started a modern girls' school that targets the very needy in Kibera slum. Those who enroll in this school are provided with everything. All their parents do is send them to school. Odede tells of how helping and improving the welfare of the poor girls gives him satisfaction and desire to do even more to help many.
Even food to find is difficult, in their household, Some of them even have spoons. It was really hard life they are passing through. They came of them with their skinny. And then what was really hard that they were not even given a chance to go to school. You know what I mean? It's, even in terms of health, we have to help them. We have to treat some of them when they came in. The clothing they were wearing was really kind of really. You can feel that poverty that they were passing through. You know what I mean?
Unlike the Kenya's education system that really advocates for academic excellence, this school puts more emphasis on talent. The beautiful artworks hanging on the wall are testimony. This project also have a clinic that serves the whole Kibera community. The poor are identified and are not charged for services. But those who can afford have to part with a small fee. The daycare, which accommodates children aged between 6 months to 3 years, has made a great impact to this community. It only targets the very needy children whose parents can barely afford even a meal. Some children join this project suffering from malnutrition-related illnesses.
There are children here who came in when they were just terrible. There's a set of twins here who, when I first saw them, I cried. I mean, they're looking like they're going to die the next minute. But when I look at them now, they're healthy. And then there are also parents who had reached a point where sort of like they've given up.
There are many needy children in Kibera slum, and this project can accommodate only a small fraction of them. For Odede, it's painful for him to send away a needy child due to lack of enough space to accommodate all desperate cases, but he can only do much. His plan is to expand Shining Hope project so that he can touch as many girls who in return will change the face of Kibera slum from a desperate story to a success story.
Now, with little more than plastic bottles of water, Litter Allied organization found a new way to provide light to slums in Kenya, where electricity is still unreliable or too expensive for the poor. Hesbon Mugambi brings us a story of how the bottle bulbs are lighting many homes in one of the slums, where many houses are built too close to each other to allow for windows.
With just a plastic bottle, water and bleach, the Lit of Light Kenya has found a way to produce light that has brought a smile and brightened homes of many slums in Nairobi.
We use PET bottles. These are irregular Coke or Pepsi plastic bottles. And the real process of getting this light is simply using water and bleach. The bleach serves the purpose of keeping the water clean so that algae does not grow. And the sunlight refracts the light inside the house.
By the daytime, like this time, from 10 to noon, I was supposed to lit on the light and use the electricity power. By this time, I'm not using the electricity power.
The overcrowding in the slums is not only a hindrance to emergency service providers, but even the rays of the sun cannot reach the houses in these informal settlements.
We realized that there's a need for this project, and as you'll see, the slum areas have, congested housing, whereby during the day it's literally dark, and yet there's sunlight outside. So this is energy that we can freely use and provide a simple solution for the people in the informal settlements.
Using electricity for 24 hours a day raises household expenses and is a luxury that Teresia Kaleche, a single mom of two, whose source of income is manual labor, cannot afford.
In terms of money saving, and it is good.
What motivated me most is probably to do practical work where you can see that it's of use to people and that it brings joy to people.
Inserted through the roof, each bottle refracts sunlight with the intensity of a 55-watt light bulb. Lit of Light is a cheap and environment-friendly solution to many slum residents.
Our project also reduces the amount of CO2 because we recycle materials, and so we also try to have an ecological impact.
This solution has been replicated in many countries across the world.
Okay, so we are now active in Bangladesh, in Mexico, in Colombia, in South Africa we've done a project, and also in India.
For Ebru Africa News, I'm Hesbon Mugambi.
Well, that story wraps up our weekly report today, but be sure to join me next week for more of this. I am Anette Akisa. Have a lovely weekend.
Does your exterior complement your interior? Everyone needs a home that is inspired by nature. At Yenbo Limited, we offer durable, energy-efficient and affordable UPVC windows in attractive colors. Visit us at Wall Street Business Park off Mombasa Road. Yenbo UPVC windows, your desire, our challenge.
Floma, professional makeup. Floma, professional makeup.